Hey guys, Ashton here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we have a Bullhead. We have a Seiko 61380049. I must say I do love these Bullhead Seikos. I also really like the Bullhead Citizens as well. I think they're very cool watches. This is one that was picked up from eBay by the customer, and I've had a cursory glance, and it's definitely got a few problems. Thankfully, it's working. The chronograph wheel is running, so we won't need to replace that, so that's good. But it's going to be fun to strip down and see what it needs, and I'm going to bring you guys along for the journey today to see what issues are plaguing this 6138. Yeah. Now, most of you guys will know, being Seiko collectors, that most Seikos don't wind manually. They usually are automatic only when it comes to vintage Seikos. The 6139 or the 6138 is a little different because it can be wound via the crown manually. Now, we can see that might be tough to see, but there we go. See that? The watch is actually moving around in the case. At the moment, we're not starting and stopping, and we're definitely loose in the case. These were all problems that were reported to me by the customer. So let's get her open. I think maybe I put that back on too tight. Let's get her open, and I have already opened it up to take a quick look, but let's get it open, and we can get started. We can strip this thing down and get her working again. Okay, so I think we're missing a bezel movement retaining spring there. I'm going to have to look up. It's been a while since I've done one of these Bullheads, so I'm going to have to look that up, but I think that's possibly what we're missing at that point. I like to always check our, excuse me, our bearings there, and our bearings look good. We're not loose. We don't have any major issues there. So we're definitely starting off well. Let's strip down our automatic. That is under tension, so that can happen. And there's our screw, so we're all good. Let's check our jewels. We're okay. We can definitely see wear and rubbing there. All right, now let's get our movement ring out. Careful with these pushers because they use some pretty hefty springs in these bad boys, so they like to shoot away something chronic, to be honest. So be careful with those pushers if you are removing them. Okay, now let's get our stem out. go. Nice, nice rock hard gasket there we've got. So that's definitely going to need to be replaced. Look at that. That's actually quite a beautiful dial, I must say. Quite a beautiful dial indeed. My goodness. Perhaps we could polish up the crystal. I'd be inclined to maybe put a new one in just to show that off though. Because man, that's a nice dial. Okay. Let's get our stem in place. Old habits die hard. I'm trying to put the stem in at 3 o'clock. All right. Check our functions. See our minute recorder? Jumping all over the place. Look here. We're starting and we're stopping, but we're jumping all over the place. So let's our quick set's working, so that's good. Let's whip these dial and hands off and see what we're working with. Now the beauty of the 6138 is we don't need to actually jewel the barrel. The bottom bearing for the barrel is already jeweled. So what we do in this situation is we actually just put a jewel in. Excuse me, it's still early here, drinking coffee. We put the jewel in the top in the barrel bridge, but we don't put the jewel in the main plate because it's already there. So it saves us having to drill out that, which is a time-saving step, and just generally a work-saving step. Okay. Let's get those hands off. Okay. So we've got our hands off. We can now get the dial removed. By the way, I've noticed some positive comments about my video production, and I really appreciate those. So thank you for the positive feedback. Any criticisms you still might have to improve the channel, I'm always looking for ideas so that you guys can get more value out of my content. So please let me know. I've been uploading the videos in 2 parts. I've been dismantling and assembling. I don't know if you guys like that or you'd prefer it to just be one video when I do it. So feel free to comment and let me know. You can reach out, you can email me or message me on Instagram. Totally up to you. But I'd be interested in your feedback in this situation, because it makes it a little easier for me to upload it in 2 parts because they're smaller videos. But hey, if you guys prefer it as 2 videos or 1 video, please, I'm open to suggestions. Okay. Can't even remember if this is the right movement holder. It is. All right, let's get this thing stripped. Get that ring off there. And we can get that date wheel. It's interesting, I found myself in possession of a lot of these day and date wheels with all those parts that I bought. So it's a good thing because they're reasonably difficult to come by these days. So I'm pretty happy about that. Let's get that jumper off there, and then we have freed up our discs, and they can be put safely over there. All right, now we can get our calendar ring off. Now, I've said it before, but plastic parts, I like to keep all plastic parts together. I keep them in their own little section because they can get damaged, you know. It's one of the criticisms of these Seikos, all plastic parts, plastic parts. Okay, look, I'll agree with you, they're not great. This setting wheel in plastic, it's a nightmare because the teeth break. These parts, they're fine, to be honest. You don't come across a lot of issues with those. So, yeah, it's one of those things. At this point, I just want to give the watch a bit of a wind. And see what we're working with. So here we are at the timing machine. You can probably hear that, and you can see the signal. It's not even picking it up. So there's something happening, there's noise somewhere. That sound of galloping, it sounds like a horse galloping, it's usually indicative of overbanking, too much amplitude. In this case, it's not the case. It could be that the hairspring's stuck together. Oh, it's just picked up a rate. Look at that. 141. That is not a line that we like to see. That is not a healthy watch indeed. You can see there's extra noise. It's all over the place. So it's good to get the timing results beforehand so we get a baseline of what we're working with. Okay, so now that we've done that, before we start disassembling that dial side, I like to let the power down. There we go. The reason is this is our barrel, and our barrel is between the plates here, so I don't like to take it down, have the power running and take that off because we're still under load there. So you can see there's a nice jewel there for our barrel arbor. So like I said before, that means we don't need to jewel the barrel arbor, which is a good thing. So we can now take off our day setting wheel. Which exposes, or which means we can remove this top bridge. Don't you hate it when that happens? Which means we can remove this top bridge, which is going to expose our winding and setting work. And our hour counter work. Now this is something different that's not seen in a 6139, that hour counter work. In fact, it's quite different, this whole side. First, we've got a few springs that we want to remove carefully. Then we can get our hour wheel. As I pointed out, here's that plastic wheel that we want to be careful with. And again, we can put all our plastic components together so that there's no damage there. Here we have our quickset rocker. Thankfully not made of plastic, as you King Seiko fans will undoubtedly be all too familiar with when these rockers are made of plastic. They don't tend to last very well. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but my dog is outside, and that cry means she would like to come in now. Okay. You can see some crusty old stuff on there. It'll come out in the wash. That was stuck. So look at that. Minute wheel posts and things can sometimes have wear. Wear is bad because minute wheel posts or minute wheels aren't just used for setting the time. Obviously, when we pull the crown out to set the time, well, that's going to be fun. Once we pull the crown out to set the time does set. But the difference is, because everything runs through our cannon pinion, we always have power being transported to that minute wheel. So there's always, the minute wheel is always engaged, always moving. So if we have any issues with that minute wheel, we're going to have issues with amplitude. Let's get our cannon pinion off. And then we can remove our hour wheel. Looks good. And we can remove this small little... Actually, no, let's take this one out first. And then we can remove this spring here. It's quite an interesting hour counter setup. I'll be honest, it's not my favorite. It's quite finicky. I love the 6139s. The 6138s, they're great, don't get me wrong, but I just don't love the way the hour counter is set up. From a serviceability standpoint, it's pretty finicky. Other hour counters are a bit more simple. This one is a relatively complex, or I don't know, I consider it kind of messy, to be honest. You got these big levers coming across from over here, and I guess the problem is, yeah, no, I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan. Anyway, nothing to be sneezed at, nothing to be, not purchase one over. It's still a good watch. Now we have this small piece in here, so we need to be careful with this spring here. Make sure we get that out and make sure that we put that piece back in if you're playing along at home. Okay, so we have our dial side stripped. Now let's turn her over. Now we're going to find something very interesting with this minute recording wheel. I can tell from how it was behaving on the dial side. I think it's maybe completely dismantled. By dismantled, I basically mean broken. There we go. Okay. Let's get our top plate stripped. Doesn't look like the right screw there. Jewel looks good. Bushings look okay. Intermediate pinion is good. Now here's what I'm talking about. That wheel is looking a little worse for wear. Notice anything missing? Oh, the pivot's missing. Now the question is, can we repair that, or does that need replacing? And I think the answer is we can repair that. It's just come off its post. I was doing a, yeah, that looks like it's going to be repairable. Stake that up in the staking set, close the hole up, and friction fit it on, and we'll be good to go. I was doing a Zenith L Premiere not too long ago, and I had this same problem with the wheel. I ended up ordering a new wheel because they were available. I don't know, maybe if I've got a new wheel, I might pop one in. We'll just see. It's usually the safest option. But as you guys know, parts for these are pretty difficult. But I'll see what I have in my bag of tricks. Let's get these springs off here. And you guys will notice from this point onwards, it looks very similar to a 6139. At this point, it's pretty much identical, to be honest. We have a different chronograph runner, different chronograph wheel, obviously. Why do I say obviously? Well, because it's a taller movement. It requires a taller pivot on the chronograph runner. So that's why we have differences. Let's get our column wheel screw unscrewed. Let's pull back our spring and remove our column wheel. Or pillar wheel, I think Seiko call it. Nah, what's in a name? Man, the screws on this thing are done up pretty tight. Now, obviously, we can't check any kind of shake here because our bottom pivot is not in place. So that's kind of irrelevant. We get our little small bridge undone. Take that bridge off. And we reveal underneath. The other thing is, we have a jewel on our third wheel, which is something that we don't have on the 6139s. Oh, and we have our manual winding pinion, which is under here. We have our little pinion here, which is actually fixed in place, and then you'll see there's another pinion underneath, which we have as well. So there are some differences to the 6139, but overall, it looks pretty similar. Okay, so let's get the rest of this train bridge off. Get that done, and that done. And we have our bridge off. Now this, we have another wheel under here, or another pinion under here. Now this shouldn't be here. This here has just come off because of grease and things that are on there. That sits on there like that. If you can see that in there. That sits just there. But obviously we're going to take that off, but just so you know, that's not where it sits. It's not where it stays. Let's check our pivots. Jewel, sorry for wear. Oof, this thing is filthy. This thing is filthy. But I tell you what, it looks generally in pretty good condition, and I think it's going to run really, really well. Let's take the mothership out. Obviously being extra careful. Look at that, it's a good looking wheel. You got to admit, it's a pretty cool wheel, that thing. I'm always amazed, like manufacturing a wheel like this is hard enough, but it's impressive for the 70s. Look at that, look at a bent pivot. See that? On the end there, where the wheel goes on, where the hand goes on. We've got a little bent pivot there. So we will tease that back a little bit, but we will not go crazy because we do not want to damage that wheel. We want to make sure that that wheel stays working. I actually think I have one or two of them, but we like to save them because A, they're incredibly expensive, B, they're incredibly rare. So I like to save them for when they're absolutely needed. So if there's small damage like that can be repaired, or damage that isn't really damage that we can just work around with, then I say don't replace. I mean, sure, I'll take your money for them, but I think I like to save them for those that are in dire need. I had a customer contact me, and you might be watching the video. You'll know who you are, but he was like, oh, can I get a 6139B chronograph wheel? sorry, 6138 chronograph wheel. And I said, yeah, sure, it's this much. And he was like, oh, I would just wanted it as a preventative maintenance, just in case. But I think I'll leave it. So, they're very expensive. Okay, our balance spring looks nice and flat. And it looks pretty centered. So, we're good on that front. But again, as you guys know, we don't check that now. We check that once we've lubricated our balance pivots, once the watch has been through the cleaner. Let's remove our shock protection and get our springs out of there. Now let's get this balance bridge off. That's my dog again. She likes to bark and scratch herself at the same time. They're funny creatures, but we love them. All right. Stuck there, probably just some residual garbage. Oh, I don't know if you guys can see that. Let's try and get in there. That is filthy. That's disgusting. This watch will benefit from such a good clean. It's going to solve the majority of the problems that plague it, I would say, other than that minute recording wheel. Center wheel looks pretty good. Pivots look good. Let's check our balance. What do we check on our balance? Well, we want to check our impulse pin. Our balance stuff. Everything looks good. Let's check the jewels in our plate. Man, just filthy. Absolutely filthy. So we're gonna peg those bad boys out. Remember, we do the cheats way. That's the beauty of these movement holders. I love the fact that they're through like this, because you can just get lazy and you can do it from this side. Well, it's not lazy, it just makes life simple. Okay. Now what? Well, a couple more jewels to peg out, and it's off for an ultrasonic bath. I'll get this barrel opened up. I'm not going to do that on camera because I found that really difficult last time. So I'll get that done, get that in the ultrasonic bath, then through the cleaning machine, and we are ready to assemble. So stay tuned for part 2, guys, of the assembly of this movement. Thanks again for watching, and please, if you've enjoyed the content, subscribe to the channel so you get notified when new videos come out. Until next time, thanks guys.